Hello, everyone. We are live. Let me know if you're here. And what do you want to talk about? I'm a little bit late today. I apologize. And I didn't post that I was going live. I usually do. But I was busy working on my place and cleaning and stuff, which is why I'm having some allergies today. So I also apologize if I happen to sneeze or something. I did take a pill, so I should be okay, but it might take a while for it to kick in. So we'll wait for a few people to get here, and when you're here, say hi. So if you're new to my channel, and it's the first time that you have been to one of my live chats, we talk about all things truth and Ascension, mysticism, hidden meanings, decoding, that sort of thing. Anybody is welcome as long as you're kind and respectful. And please, no questions or comments regarding the things that happened in 2020, because it's still controversial according to the YouTube regulators, so we want to play nice for now. So no comments about what happened in 2020. I gotta see the chat. Maybe I'll just change my window. That would be better. There we go. So we got Leaves of Grass, Wilfie, and Austin Beber. Hello, everybody. If you're here, say hi. Let me know you're here. Even if you can't participate in the chat or don't want to participate in the chat, it's always nice for me and for others to know that you're here. But I'm here to talk to you. So, yeah, that's the point. But I can ramble if I need to ramble. Austin Bever, what other movies are you going to decode? Well, I do have quite a few on my plate already, but the one I just did, Event Horizon, I did a very short one. It was only 10 minutes long, but it was pretty packed 10 minutes. And I like that it was a very quick and short decode, but got to the point. So I might do a few more of those because, there's not a whole lot in that. It's not like a Don't Worry, Darling or Under the Silver Lake that deserves, an in-depth review, but it was worth showing. So as you know, I'm still working on the Johnny Depp material, and there's so much there. I'm having a hard time with it. There's resistance with it too, which is frustrating. I haven't had this kind of resistance in a long time. And so I can't force it. I just have to go with it. Whatever is going on, it's not letting me proceed in a very fluid way. So either I want to present it in a different format, or there's more information. There's something that's preventing me from putting it together as easily as it should flow. And then I have the Don't Worry, Darling. I still have one more video to do of that, which will be like an all-encompassing summation of the entire film. I want to do Westworld as well. And what other... I want to revisit Back to the Future because there's more I want to add to that with the two worlds, which I did comment on in a live stream recently. And there's still more subtleties to add to that, but I might just, I don't know, I may not do a video on it. I'm not sure yet. What was the other one? I might do one on the Poseidon Adventure, a short one, because it's an interesting film. Yeah, there's some interesting things that are worth noting in that movie. And I watched the other day, I watched Being There, which I found incredibly boring. I understood like the nuances of it and the genius in it, but yeah, I found it really boring. I fast forwarded through most of it. It was 1972. It was a different time. They had a slower pace to their films, and I'm not wasn't in the mood for that. But I'm not doing one on Being There. And the other film I just watched was Somewhere in Time. I might do one on that because if you're not familiar with the film, it's Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour, and it was another 70s film. And he travels back in time to be with her. And so there's a few subtleties and a few insights that I think are worth covering for that one. Again, it would be a short one. There's not a tremendous amount in it, but I might do that. I'm currently watching Dune. That's another slow movie, but it's starting to get interesting. This is my like third attempt at watching this movie. But yeah, it's starting to get interesting. There's a few Johnny Depp movies I would like to cover, like short videos, not super in depth, but I'd like to cover Transcendence and possibly Crimes of Grindelwald. I might want to cover that one. And The Tourist. I think those are some really interesting information drops. That's a lot. That's a lot right now. Anyway, any movies that I've mentioned that you really are keen to have a decode on, let me know. Joel Viner, hello. You got here today. Excellent. Raina, hi. Crimes is good. Yeah. I just recently watched that one, and there's some subtleties in it. It's a long movie, but again, there's not a huge amount, but there's some subtleties in it that are worth pointing out, especially especially pertaining to Johnny Depp. So yeah, I might do a few on his filmography, and maybe even Pirates of the Caribbean. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, that's a lot. So I'd be here forever. Anybody watch anything particularly revealing lately? You'd love to see a short on Poseidon Adventure? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that there's some subtleties in that are really interesting. Like the Christmas tree scene, I found really powerful and worth mentioning. So, yeah, because I think I'll be referring to that a lot in discussion of like that as a metaphor. And yeah, so I think that might be worth doing. Any of the ones I mentioned that you're really keen to see, and I can prioritize those. So we got Crimes and Poseidon Adventure. Let's see. So this week, what happened this week? Fireworks. we had watching Drew Carey show, and they keep mentioning trolls a lot. Not sure if it's anything. Okay. That's interesting. I don't know if it means anything. I mean, I don't watch Drew Carey show, but if it stands out to you, just pay attention to it, see where it goes. Because what I've noticed with all of this stuff is that it leads somewhere. Just follow your curiosity, because when, there's certain times where I'll either get stuck on something and have a question, and then the answer will come in the most unlikely place. Like, I'll just be watching, like, I like to watch the Chateau Diaries, and I'll be watching that, and there'll be something in it. I mean, I made a few videos on that show already, pointing out some of the synchronicities that have popped up in that show. So, I mean, they can show up anywhere. So yeah, I would just say just follow your curiosity. So if there's something in the Drew Carey show that's talking to you and means something to you, just follow it and see where it leads. Same with Love is Blind. I was borderline obsessed with that show, not just with the show itself, but with the hype around it. And usually when there's that much hype, there's something going on in the system. So I pay attention to these things, like Andrew Tate, the hype around him. There's something going on in the system that is worth studying. It's worth looking at. And I just happen to enjoy watching the show, and I enjoyed the psychology behind it as well, because there were a lot of people, like a lot of therapists, that were analyzing the show, and their perspectives were very interesting. So I started to learn a little bit more about human behavior, and as well as, the nuances of, say, the autism spectrum versus narcissism and that sort of thing. So, there's a great deal of information to be had just by following your curiosity, even if it does seem like it's just trash TV or, whatever it is. If maybe it's like playing soccer or something, there might be something in that. But yeah, like the discoveries that I made in watching Love is Blind were mind blowing. So that ended up being very valuable in watching that show. And following all the hype, because there's agenda pushing going on in there. There's awareness going on in there. And they want people to be aware of mental illness. This is a big thing right now. You need to be aware of mental illness, not just in other people, but in yourself as well, and to be mindful of how you use your mind, how the mind works, and to better relate to other people with their, limitations or differences and difficulties, and have a little bit more compassion and understanding as to why people are the way they are and why they relate the way they do. And so when you encounter someone who's like offensive or abrasive or hurtful, then you can understand where it's coming from and not react so much. So all of that's been very helpful. I think understanding the mind is paramount to me, next to truth, and understanding human behavior, relating to people, all of that's very important. And so, like, that's, to me, fascinating area of study and important area of study. So yeah. Point is, follow your curiosity. It can lead you to revelations that way. Hello, Jack Collins. Hello. Hi, everyone. I need to watch Poseidon again, but would like a decode of The Tourist. Yeah. Okay, so I got 3. That's good. Yeah, like The Tourist is a very loaded film, actually, surprisingly. And for those of you who just joined, yeah, if you're here and you could, click the like button, I'd really appreciate it. Show your support for my videos on my channel. If you've just joined us, I was saying that the Johnny Depp material is giving me a lot of resistance. I mean, I've got a tremendous body of work, a lot of research, a year's worth of research that went into this, and I'm trying to reduce it into one video, and so that it's understandable to people, especially people, because I think it's going to interest people who are new to my channel just by the nature of the subject matter, because it's Johnny Depp. But I don't want to have to regurgitate everything that I have put on my channel, so I don't want to go into all of that. There's enough material on Johnny Depp alone that I could make a 3-hour video and still not have covered it all. So I don't want to put out a series like I did with Don't Worry Darling, because people aren't interested in series apparently. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of resistance, but I am working on it. So in the meantime, while that's happening, I'm working on that. I'm working on another video about dreams, and I'm working on, like these sort of one-off videos that come up. So in the meantime, I might do the 3 movies that have been mentioned: The Crimes of Grindelwald, The Poseidon Adventure, and I'll do The Tourist after I do Johnny Depp, because I don't want to put in information on The Tourist until I explain who Johnny Depp is. And so, yeah, I think that'll have to come after. One theme they really tried to make work was killer ant movies. Forgot the name, but they really were the biggest fails. They did try to use a lot of psychology and science, and they didn't work. Reperception. Well, welcome to the chat. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome. That's really interesting. I don't know of killer ant movies. I mean, I remember some movies that had some killer ants in it, but I don't remember movies that were just solely about killer ants, but that's interesting. It sounds like it kind of fits in the horror genre of like the old school stuff, like The Blob, or maybe I'm wrong, but like the sort of cheesy, cheaply made horror films that of like these big scary monsters like Godzilla or whatever. It sounds like it fits in that category, but maybe I'm wrong, because I haven't seen them, so I don't know. And sometimes films that are a little obscure and didn't work have a lot of truth in them, but I can't imagine that a killer ant movie would have a lot of truth in it. Who knows? Maybe it does. Austin Beber, have you ever seen any videos by Scrawny to Brawny? No, I have not. He also had a video of Back to the Future and how the tunnel leading to the Griffith Observatory is a metaphor for contacting higher intelligence, also and Under the Silver Lake. There's a tunnel to the Griffith Observatory. The Griffith Observatory is not in Back to the Future. It's in Under the Silver Lake, though. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that channel. A series on dreams would be interesting. Yeah, it was cheesy horror. Okay. Yeah, I'm not doing a series. I'm doing a more of a creative sort of music video compilation for dreams right now. But I'll keep it in mind. I might explore the idea of dreams. I do agree. I think there's not enough content on dreams, and dreams are very fascinating. Yeah, there's a lot about dreams that I find very fascinating. And I've tried talking about my dreams and stuff and try to get the dialogue going, but people are very reluctant to share their dream experiences. People are very reluctant to share their, psychic experiences or anything in that area. So, because, it's one thing for me to share my own experiences, but that's kind of like only helpful to a point, I mean, I can do research on it, but, like the main area of interest is people like us. Are our dreams, like, how do we dream any different? Do we dream about different things? Are they more realistic? Are they, a lot of people get into lucid dreaming and controlling their dreams. I think there's a misunderstanding as to what lucid dreaming is. A lot of people will say that they're lucid dreaming when they don't. They're just having a very vivid dream. But lucid dreaming means you control the dream. You're aware that you're in a dream and you control it. So another thing that I find worth looking at is past life regression, which could go in the vein of like somewhere in time. That could line up with that. So yeah, I'm not short of ideas for content, that's for sure. I have so much I want to talk about, and it's just getting it out there and putting it out in the right format, because the content that I do is I want to make sure that the information is all there. So I don't want to just do a live and blab about it. Because sometimes, there's so much that gets discussed in a live that it can get lost in the shuffle. And some of these subjects deserve core focus and research and, proper structure to the video. That was the video I mentioned about the Griffith Observatory. Well, speaking of contacting higher intelligence was, I watched the movie Contact with Jodie Foster recently. It's interesting. I don't know that it's worth doing a decode though. Like there's some little details in that movie that I've personally found interesting in how it related to me and my story, but also when she travels to the other world. That part it's interesting and worth kind of examining. Maybe I'll do that in a live stream or something, because it's not very long. It's not a lot, but it is interesting. What I found fascinating about that movie was that she's sitting there. She scrambles the message that she's receiving from these aliens through a television set and decodes it through the TV. And I was like, oh, look, it's me. And I thought that was just hilarious. And so then she gets this message through the television and figures out from that what they're trying to say. Yeah, so maybe it's worth putting a little bit of, I might do a live on it, because it's it's not a lot. Anybody see anything interesting recently? Have you ever seen Once Upon a Time? It's a Disney show, all fairy tales in one town. Stranger is brought back to the town to save it and remember lots of obvious codes, but some subtle ones too. I have seen most of season 1, and then I lost interest. And I saw it when it came out. Which was a long time ago. And I have it on my list to go back and watch it because of that. But I do remember there was a barrier put up where the fairy tale land is, and they're all participating in these fairy tales. So it might be worth rewatching. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but yeah, it's definitely got a lot of truth in there. Another one that I took a look at it some time ago, which was Under the Dome, but it was such a badly made show. Like, I can't tolerate really badly made shows. So I lost interest in that, but yes, if you walked out of the barrier, you would lose your memory of your fairy tale self. That's really cool. I don't remember that part, but I do remember them being in the barrier. And so, yeah, knowing what I know now, I think it might be worth revisiting. It was a well-made show, the Once Upon a Time. And I forget why I lost interest. Something happened in season 1 that really bothered me. And I kind of had like a love-hate relationship with the lead actors. Kind of liked them, kind of didn't like them. Maybe it was partly because of the way that they were written, that they were kind of like, I don't know, sort of wishy-washy. Kind of annoyed me a little bit. Yeah, Under the Dome was a trip, but really badly done. Clean slate. Hi. Yeah, really too bad, because when it came out, I was really excited about it, and I thought it was going to be really interesting, and I watched a couple of episodes, and I'm like, I can't. It's just terrible. But, kudos to anybody who has. They pushed one of the 7, I think they added an 8th dwarves out of the barrier as a test, and he forgot himself. Oh, the poor little dwarf. It's like, let's test it. Oh, that just sounds so funny. Poor little guy. And he forgot himself. Oh, that's too funny. Nobody knows is here. Hello. Yeah, so we're just talking about stuff worth watching that's got truth in it. TV shows or movies or anything. But yeah, I think I might bump Once Upon a Time up the list, get back to it. Sounds like it's worth taking a look at. But yeah, right now I really want to get to Westworld. It's driving me nuts that it takes so long. But you know what? It's frustrating to me, but it's all divine timing. I know that the reason for the delays are meaningful. It's not like I'm just sitting here procrastinating or anything, or not getting to it on purpose. There's things that come up in the meantime that reveal more information that's going to make the video that much richer. And I've realized too, like, I've wanted to get to the Johnny Depp stuff for months, and every time I've seen something new come up that has just blown a hole in everything and opened it up to so much more information. And So I've just learned to be patient, sort of patient. I'm not all that patient when I'm like, I got my mind set on something I want to do, I want to get it done. But, I've had to adjust because I guess I'm a little bit type A personality, wanting to get things done, and I don't like things to be unfinished. And so in the past, I was like, always do. But then truth came along and I sort of let go of that on purpose. So I was playing around with all of the, the tendencies I had towards doing, and I let that go towards being. And then the tendency I had towards being very organized and making lists and there's like this agenda that I had of I have to be here and to do this at this time and having things scheduled. And I let all of that go and started going with the flow more and sort of be more creative and more chaotic. So the more in the feminine and less in the masculine, less out of that ego mindset of accomplishment and getting things done. And, but like I was getting all this stuff done, but for what reason? Like it was getting stuff done for the sake of getting it done. In a lot of ways, like, yeah, I had a job to do, so I had to get the stuff done. But it was this sort of false sense of accomplishment in the sense that I felt like, okay, when I get this done, then this is going to happen. If I get this done, then this is going to happen. And I was constantly doing things that were not progressing in terms of like accomplishment or, career advancement or whatever that you think that was going to accomplish. But on the other side of it, it was all accomplishing training for truth. That's all it was. Everything I've done in my life that I thought was going to be something else was all just training. It was all training for truth. And so anyway, I let all that go, and now I'm more in the flow, and I'm listening more to the universe and working more with the universe and and working more with intuition and feeling things as opposed to just pushing ahead. So like, if it doesn't feel right, I don't push it. And it's been a very powerful lesson because when it feels right, it gets done like that. Like there's been times where I look back on some of these videos that I've done. I'm like, how the hell did I do that? And I did it so quickly because I was in the flow. I was in the zone and it was all there. And all I had to do was put the pieces together. But when it's laborious and it's just not worth doing. So there's a reason. So I just let it go and I let it sit. I'll play around with it. I'll feel my way through it and see, like with this Johnny Depp stuff right now, I'm feeling like it needs to be presented in a different way. So I'm feeling my way through that and trying things out and seeing, well, how do I want to present it? What do I want to, like, what kind of angle do I want it to come out as, or how do I want it to look or feel? And, I want to have fun with it. I want it to be creative and impactful and meaningful. And, I want people to come away from that going, wow, like, I can't believe the information that was in there, and you can apply it to your own life and get some mind-blowing pieces of information out of it. So yeah, if it's not going to come out that way, I don't want to put something out that's not worth listening to or not worth watching, that's dry or like way too long. So yeah, it's reshaping itself, and I'm feeling my way through it. I tried watching the Christopher Reeve movie. I couldn't. Old ones bore me. Yeah, it's an odd movie. But I remember watching it years ago. I think I might have been a teenager, and I was a big fan of Christopher Reeve because I'm a big Superman fan. And so watching it I really enjoyed it when I was a teenager, so I thought I'll give it another watch now, knowing what I know. And it is a very slow film. There's not a whole lot to the story, so in that sense, it's a little bit disappointing. But there's some nuances to it that I think are worth seeing. I've started fast forwarding through a lot of films because I don't have the tolerance for the actual film. I just want the truth out of it. It's kind of like taking a piece of fruit, and instead of eating the whole fruit, I just take the juice. So I do sympathize. I do think that it was a very slow film, and I'm seeing a lot of these movies now in a totally different way, that the story itself doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And if you're looking at the movie from a superficial standpoint, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then when you see it from the truth perspective, it makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of like, like Don't Worry, Darling or Under the Silver Lake. They're very obscure, weird movies to the person who looks at it from this superficial point of view. But if you look at it from a truth point of view, it's a freaking masterpiece. So it's clear to me that these films are written that way on purpose. They're not meant to be superficial entertainment. And that's why a lot of times you get reviews of certain things that are just like, I don't understand it, because they're not meant to be understood that way. Another film I just watched last night was, what was it called? Oh, Mr. Destiny. It was made in 1990. It was okay. It was kind of like your typical what if scenario. If my life had changed, if I had done this, and then you get a chance to live your life that way, and kind of like what was it called? The Christmas Carol is kind of like that. Father, what was the name of that movie with Nicolas Cage? It was another Christmas movie, pretty much like Christmas Carol, where he's a bit of a Grinch, and he gets to live another life with this girlfriend he had that he gave up to have a career. And I like that movie. That's a really good movie. But they're all kind of in the same vein. This one kind of bothered me because he had this regret that he was living his life. He had a wife, he had a family, whatever. But because he was not grateful for what he had, and he was looking at what his life could have been if he had hit this baseball as a teenager, he was focusing on this other life that he wanted. So he had a chance to have that life, but the whole time that he had that life, he was focusing on the life that he had. So I'm like, dude, you are so messed up. You don't like anything that you have. Your focus is on what your life would be if you had something else. So that was the whole lesson. The whole lesson was he had to learn to appreciate what he has, but he had to lose it to appreciate it. But it was so annoying because, he gets what he wants and he doesn't appreciate it. He's focused again, like backwards on what he did have and didn't appreciate. And then he goes back and gets it and then he appreciates it. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's annoying. Yes, able to just be love-free energy, and sharing our gifts and talents is all we need that way. Yeah, I agree. Nobody knows. Yeah, just go with the flow. It's a Wonderful Life. Hey, Bubscat. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is another one that's in that vein as well. Weatherman, Groundhog Day, Sliding Doors. They're all kind of similar. Jack Collins, watched Benny and June last night. Really sweet. True Love. Yeah, it's a sweet film. Donnie Darko, Southland Tales. I haven't seen Donnie Darko. It just looks so weird. But there is a lot in it that people keep referring to that I might have to have a look at it. What do you think, Austin Bever? Do you think it's worth looking at Donnie Darko? Southland Tales, I'm not even familiar with that. I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about it. Your Event Horizon decode was insane. Thanks, Bubscat. What exactly about it made it insane? I just recently rewatched my Under the Silver Lake decode, and like I like to go back and watch my stuff every now and then because I learn from my own stuff. Half the time, I'm so in the zone when I make it that sometimes I don't even catch some of the things that I say until afterwards. And when I went back and watched that, I was just like, whoa. I can't even understand where half of this came from. It's because I was so in the zone and I was just so in it. Like when I'm watching these movies, I'm in it. And I don't know, it's just sort of like it speaks to me and shows me things, and I can see it. I don't know, it's kind of like being in a different world or something. Donnie Darko is unnecessarily pretentious and overrated. Oh, thank you. Okay. Reperception. How glaring it is now versus seeing it while blind. Yeah. Well, this is it. Like, I don't know. I found that film to be very interesting because it was so dark. And, it's intensely focused on fear, which is a major element in this realm we live in. We have to deal with our fear. We have to confront our fear. But the character of Weir was fascinating because he was so dark and he got sucked into the mind of the ship was his mind. And so he what yeah, like he was a very dark character, but I felt like he lost himself to the ship, like, which was interesting because he was the one who lost his wife to suicide, and he created the ship, and he got so sucked in and attached. And I think that's why he became so evil, because he was so attached to it, because he created it. He was attached to it. He didn't want to leave it. And he loved it in a way. And so he became one with it. And that to me is an example of losing yourself to the physical mind, to the egoic mind. You get so sucked into that realm and that mindset that you lose yourself. Everything is pointing to us, the U magnetic electric. Yeah. Steinwinds, Under the Silver Lake is awesome film. Reminds me a bit of Don Peyote. I haven't seen Don Peyote, so I don't know that one. It is an awesome film. It's a masterpiece, just like Don't Worry, Darling. Dark Night of the Ego. Yeah, exactly, Bubscat. I'll have to give Event Horizon a watch. Enjoyed your decode. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, it's worth watching. I mean, it's a good film. It's kind of to me, what's worth watching about it is the truth. It gives it a lot more weight and significance than just a hollow Hollywood film. Coming to terms with the dark within. Yeah, exactly that way. Reperception. Quick question. Do you have a favorite platform where you find movies? I go here to there and find Netflix to be one of my least favorite. Well, I use Netflix and Prime and then Plex, and I have what's it called? Roku, and all failing, I use the internet. I find a lot on the internet if I can't find it elsewhere. But yeah, Netflix is limited. I like the application. I like how it works better than Prime. I like how it navigates. I do find it difficult to find things to watch sometimes because maybe it's because I have an Apple TV device that's kind of outdated. So I don't know if it's just an update thing, that the way that it's structured, because on my Roku it's different. But the navigation system on Netflix, I find it difficult to find titles in terms of browsing. And same with Prime, kind of limiting. If you know what you're looking for, well, it's easy to find. You just search for it. But I do prefer Netflix as a streaming service. I find their technology to be superior. Kind of like how Blockbuster didn't put certain films on their shelves back today. Yeah, it kind of is. My gosh, thinking back on Blockbuster is kind of funny to me. But yeah, like when I lived in Toronto, I used to live right across the street from a Blockbuster, and I used to go there, and I'm a browser. I enjoy the process of browsing. And like if I go to a bookstore, I like to drink wine. So if I go and get wine, I will browse the wine racks. And I enjoy reading the labels. I enjoy reading book titles. I enjoy going to all like little stores, and I will not buy anything. I'll just look. So I used to go to the Blockbuster and I would browse the shelves and take my time because I would like to find something that I will enjoy. I don't just pick up any old thing. And sometimes, like, because the people who work there, they have cameras. They had like this area. I used to watch the indie films, and they were in the basement. And I would take my time because you don't hear a lot about the indie films, so you have to read the backs. So there was a time where like one of the people in the indie store in the Blockbuster was like, "Oh, you took quite a long time looking at these movies," and I'm like, "Yeah, I like browsing. I like looking at it." And yeah, half the time I don't even get anything. Sometimes I just like to look. To me, it's like a museum. Even just going to the local value village is like going to a museum. I like to look at stuff. And on the off chance that I really, really like it, I can buy it. I don't have to. But to me, that's like better than a museum because I can buy it if I want to. But otherwise, I can just look at stuff. I mean, I just think it's gives a little bit of variety, and it's appreciating some of the beauty of this place, But anyway, this sort of a stroll down memory lane. But we used to rent movies when I was a kid, and we'd go to the Blockbuster. And when I was like really young, we used to rent VCRs, and that was a big deal. So you had to rent a VCR and a VHS to watch a movie, because VCRs back in the day were pricey. But not anymore. So, yeah, like Event Horizon is decent. It's worth watching. I'm making my way through a list of films that were posted in Discord. And as I said, I started to watch Dune. It started to get interesting, but it's slow. I don't quite understand what's going on with it. It's kind of a weird film. I mean, it's visually stunning, but it's slow and weird. But, I'll get there. So yeah, like, I don't know, do you recommend Donnie Darko? Reperception didn't like it, but in terms of a truth movie, is it worth watching? Like Donnie Darko? The Phantom Toll Booth is a really great look at reality. I have not even heard of it. The Phantom Toll Booth. What is that about? Love to browse bookstores. Miss it. Only a few B&N stores here in Phoenix. But we have a great independent store called Changing Hands, and it rules. That's cool. I like secondhand stuff because you can find some really interesting things. Because I like the older, especially with mythology or esoteric knowledge or any of that, the older the better. The more modern stuff seems to be a little bit cleaned up and edited. So I try to find older stuff when it pertains to that. And sometimes I can find some really good stuff in the Value Village. Sometimes it's hit and miss. There's not really a huge section of really old books. I don't even know. There's got to be a vintage bookstore or something around here, but I don't think there's a huge market for it. I don't know where there is one. Too many people recommend that one, which I don't necessarily. Yeah. I mean, I've seen some videos on Donnie Darko that I'm like, there's just not enough in it that interests me, and it's just so freaking weird that, when it's really that weird, it puts me off. Half animation, half real time. Yeah, it just put me off, but I have secondhand bookstores. I will browse all day. Yeah. It's like a library that you can buy stuff, and it's usually cheaper. Necessarily feel would be beneficial for the subconscious mind. Yeah. Thanks, nobody knows. Southland Tales is a better movie to decode than JD. Also, The Box by same director that are more worth your time. Thank you. Thank you, Steven Snowman. Donnie Darko, Trump, Back to the Future, bizarre correlations. Really? I mean, sometimes, yeah, I've seen Palm Springs, Steinway. It's really good. Yeah, it is a good film. There is stuff to decode in it, but it's. I don't think it's. I don't think it's worth me doing it personally. I do think that it's worth watching, though. Have you had any interesting synchronicities this week? Raina, thank you. I have actually. I want to get back to I'll get back to that in a second, but the Bubscat comment about the connections between the movies. Now, because I haven't seen Donnie Darko or Trump, I don't know specifically about those films, but I just want to speak to it in general about sometimes I see, people make connections between films that, say, like, for example, the 9/11 stuff. Well, the 9/11 stuff is in everything. So you're going to find connections to 9/11 in a variety of sources. But sometimes it's just a matter of the symbolism is showing up because that's what these stories are there to show you. It doesn't necessarily mean that those are connected. I've seen people try to make connections where there are none on a level that doesn't make any sense. So my point is just be careful and mindful of that, because they're misinterpreting the symbolism as connecting those movies and those people, or you know what I mean? Whereas it's just presenting the same message because it's all about Kundalini. So yeah, they're not seeing it at a higher level sometimes. Like I said, I'm talking generalities. So they don't know that the reason that these symbols are showing up in these films is because it's everywhere. That is the one story. They don't know that. And so they make connections where it's a false connection to those movies specifically. So not that it's wrong, it's just half of the story. Synchronicities this week. Okay, that's interesting. Darko seems to reference Trump's lifetime actor role. Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. I don't know. Synchronicities. Yeah, anybody had any synchronicities this week? Let me know. This week I have, so with the Titan stuff that just happened, I showed you a long list of synchronicities that had happened to me and to a few people in the group. Like knock knock was one. The flux capacitor was showing up. Intersection, explosions, implosions, there was a lot all tied in to the atomic explosion, essentially. But also, essentially, it's the knock knock. The knock knock was the cap, so to speak. That was the epitome of the set of synchronicities, because we're knocking on heaven's door. And so now I had a bit of a quiet space, but I did have, last week I showed you, there were two license plates that I came across. One was Denome, which was Gnosis, and also the Poppy with the Foramen, which the foramen is the door, basically, that only Amen can enter. So yeah, like those two showed up. Haven't seen anything connected to that since. And then yesterday, so yeah, since then I had a bit of a lull. And then yesterday I had synchronicities, which, like, I was on YouTube, and you know how they show you like the little thumbnails for the videos, and I opened up YouTube and I was scrolling down my recommended list, and I saw 22 instances of halos or energy coming from the top of the head, which is what's supposed to happen when you're Christed, you're anointed. You know, like in Free Guy, where they have TrueLove's kiss and all his memories come flooding back, and he has this energy comes out at the top of this head at the back. That's what that is. So I saw 22 instances of that on the one page, without refreshing, without changing. Like, it was all on one page. So that was kind of interesting. So we'll see where this leads. But that was just yesterday. Other than that, that's about it. Darko depicts a PLE losing, is that PLE or Pi? Losing an engine as Trump was being ousted from his term. A plane lost its engine over Colorado. Oh, it's supposed to be a plane? Okay, so depicts a plane losing an engine as Trump was being ousted from his term. A plane lost its engine over Colorado. Okay, it's interesting. Again, I think it's all connected to the one story, but I'd have to see it to know what it is. Brandon, can you explain Gematria? In what context? Can you be a little bit more specific with your question? It's a bit of a broad question. Seal Lion channel has some interesting videos. Yes, I love Seal Lion. He's just posted a video again. He's just come back online, but hopefully he posts some more, because Seal Lion is Jake Coates, and he is the one who coined the phrase synchromysticism, and Seal Lion has some brilliant videos. So yeah, I highly recommend going to watch his channel. And there's another couple of channels who talk about synchromysticism who are quite good. I've talked about them before. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And then there are some deceivers who show a little bit, but then lead you the wrong way and put a lot of fear into it. So I'm not going to recommend those channels. If you find them and you want to watch them, by all means, but I'm not going to recommend them. I've heard it said that synchronicities could be part of a destiny wave function. Could you explain that, please? What do you mean by a destiny wave function? Gematria in predictions, like how Gematria is coded in everything from date numerology to daily events. Okay, well, I don't put a whole lot of stock in Gematria in the way that some channels do, namely because those channels are shills. And here's why. They mix ciphers. Gematria is, if you're going to use Gematria properly, you have to root it back to the zodiac, because the letters come from the zodiac and the letters are encoded with a number. They have a value. So personally, I only trust Greek and Hebrew Gematria, rooting back to the alphabet and their value. And I also trust basic English Gematria. I think there's 2 or 3 ciphers and that's it. But I do not use Gematria a lot. I use it very seldomly. But yeah, everything is coded. Everything is numerically coded. The Gematria channels that talk about, predicting stuff, they don't predict things. For the amount of research that they claim to have done in Gematria, they should know a lot more than they do. And basically, the main channel that uses it, there's 3 that I can think of, sorry. The main one is focused on gambling, and his main agenda is to make money. You shouldn't trust somebody like that. He's all about trying to make money. And I don't put much stock in, mixing ciphers. You're not supposed to do that because it's all about frequency. It's all about the number that is connected to the alphabet, which is connected to the zodiac, because everything comes from the zodiac. So it has a frequency, and trying to connect certain phrases, some people tend to force fit things and make it fit. And you need to understand too what the numbers represent and what they mean. If you want to understand Gematria properly, go to someone who is Jewish, like a rabbi, and get it from him. There are rabbis on YouTube who talk about Gematria, and they know what they're talking about, and get it from those people. What else? Also, like the dates and everything, like sometimes it's okay, but some of these channels overdo it with connecting. Well, this is so many days away from this, and this is so many days away from this, and months away from this, and then they tweak everything to make it fit. You can't do that. So that's why I don't use it. To me, everything is symbolism anyway. The words, it's a word play. The words will tell you. So I rely more on the words, and the Gematria, which is in the Bible, or the mystic symbolism from the numerology or the Gematria that's in the Bible, tells you the meaning of the numbers and why they're written a certain way, the expression of those certain numbers, and why they mean what they mean. They have to relate back to the zodiac. They have to relate back to the stars. So that's how I connect it. And that's where I get my connections from. Other than that, I don't pay much attention to the other stuff. I don't see much value in it. Some people do. And I personally, it's a little bit on the left side, trying to break everything down into numbers, and some people can get lost in it and it loses all the meaning. So you have to be very careful you don't get lost in it. Yeah, I don't decode your reality as a shill. I don't put any faith in him at all. Like pushed or pulled towards future events or something like that, I think. Oh, pushed or pulled to. Okay, I've not heard anything like that about synchronicities being pushed or pulled towards future events. The way that I view synchronicities, and this is just my interpretation. Synchronicities is the universe's way of getting you to pay attention to certain aspects of the universe. So you can get a greater appreciation or feeling for synchronicities and how they work by practicing law of attraction and law of assumption, because you start to see a connection between your thoughts and the physical world. And so when you are seeing synchronicities, it's the universe calling your attention to something. So with the case of Ascension, for me, the universe has been calling my attention to certain things along my path in my Ascension process and saying, here's the stage you're at, and here is where, here's where you're going, or here's the stage that you've passed, or congratulations, I have street theater, that sort of thing, as a way that the universe is communicating with me. And so in a way, I see it more like an answer to an inner question. And sometimes it's an inner question I don't even know I've asked. So it's, in a sense, it's like the universe folding over on itself to show something to me. And it's just a communication. Everything is now. So it's not, I don't see it as a push or pull, but maybe it's just a matter of how things are explained, and I don't quite understand how that explanation is made. So it could just be a different perception or different way of explaining something. But yeah, I mean, to me, like synchronicities and decoding, they're very symbiotic, because the messages that are coming to me are very present, they're very immediate, they're very now. They're like, okay, you got to pay attention to this because this is where you're at now. And as I was saying before, with the Titan decode, all of those synchronicities have faded away. Every time I shed some light on it and I figured out what those mean, and I put a video out, they go away and they move on to something else. So it's like the universe is saying, okay, figure this out now. Okay, you figured it out. Okay, now we're going to move on to this. Figure this out now. Great, you figured that out. Now we're going to move on to this. And it's all because I've asked for the truth and I've asked for ascension. And so this stuff just automatically comes to me. It's like I said, an answer to a question. So it's the same process as manifesting. So if you want to manifest something like, say, purple roses, like I have mentioned last time. If I want to manifest purple roses, for a little while I may not see something, but then eventually I'll see purple roses, and then I might see them everywhere. I may not have seen them before, and then I might see them everywhere, and then after that it might go away from my experience altogether. So that's how I see synchronicities. Eternal Dreamer 33, here I am, hugs to all, welcome. Nat, I like the way you said your past was preparing you for truth. Oh, thank you. Yes, exactly. Because sometimes, I look back on my life experiences and I think, well, I failed at that, I failed at that, and I failed at that. But it wasn't. It was all training, and it wasn't meant to be what I expected it to be, what I was planning for it to be. That was irrelevant. It was all leading to this. It was all leading to truth. So I can't look at that experience as a physical experience, from the physical perspective. I have to look at it from the metaphysical, spiritual perspective, because that was its intended purpose. And so sometimes when you look at your life through physical lens and you say, well, how come I can't get this thing to work in my life? Maybe you can't get your relationship to work. Maybe you can't get your career off the ground. Maybe you wanted to be a musician, you just can't get it going. It's maybe you weren't supposed to become a musician. Maybe you were supposed to learn music because it was going to teach you something. And then you could use your talent in music to express what you learn. So you have to look at it from a different perspective, because, and only you will know that from looking back when you get to a certain point in your ascension process. You will look back on your life and you will see the pieces will just present themselves to you. It's like looking back and, like the part where Indiana Jones goes across the chasm and he throws sand on the path and it just appears in front of him. It's kind of like that, but backwards. It's like looking backwards. You throw sand on the path and your whole life fits together, and you can see how everything was divinely inspired. Everything was meant to be. And I mean, yeah, you can say that in 2020 hindsight, but if you look at it from a physical perspective, it doesn't fit. If you look at it from metaphysical perspective, it fits. It's very strange because, I would look at it from a physical perspective and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But then you shift your perspective and it makes sense. That way, showing you that all things coincide. There are no coincidences. Yeah, that too. Brandon, what's your take on this alien agenda, but also how it connects to the border crisis and the Great Replacement theory? Well, I don't really focus on any of that. I don't know what the border crisis is, and I don't know what the Great Replacement theory is, so I can't comment on it. The alien agenda, I think, is a diversion from the upper world merging with our world. And, if you look at, Bill Donahue has shown that Uranus will appear in the sky and it will be an eye in the sky. And also, my research points in that direction too, that we will see the upper world at some point, because the veil is thinning, the veil is falling, and so the worlds will have to merge. And if that happens, chances are, because of the alien agenda and because of, the religious perception of Jesus will be coming in the clouds, and it says in Revelation, every eye will see, but not every eye will understand. So whatever your perception of whatever the, grand revelation is, or whatever the salvation is, that's what you will see, because you will see the same thing as everybody else, but it's your interpretation of what that is that's going to dominate your mind. So you'll think it's aliens if you believe in aliens. You'll think it's Jesus coming in the clouds if you believe it's Jesus. So that's my perspective on it. Aliens, to me, well, there's other worlds. I think that the other world has beings that look like us. So are there beings that don't look like us? Maybe, possibly. As much as I'm loving this convo, I'm too tired to stay up, but we'll catch up next week. We'll rewatch later. Love and light to you and everyone here in the chat. All right, bye, Joel. Thanks for tuning in. Jack Collins, I've been noticing 11 on the clock the past few days. July 11th appears to be big personally, or maybe on the big screen. 9/11, 7/11. Yeah, some people have been making a deal out of July 11th as well. But also July 22nd, which is pi. So, 22 divided by 7 is the approximation of pi. Pi is Mercury. And, I was talking about this in the Titan video, the last piece of the pi, the time is running out, last second on the clock. It's tied into that. But also, if you remember Back to the Future, Doc Brown said to Marty he has is 7.22 minutes, 7 minutes and 22 seconds to get from the starting point or get to the starting point. I can't remember exactly, but he did say 7 minutes and 22 seconds. And I pointed out that it has to do with the piano, the piano. It has to do with the zodiac. It's probably like the gap in the zodiac. I keep seeing giraffes. Oh, okay. What do giraffes mean to you? Lennon, hello. Stein wins. The wave function thing was from another YouTube channel called YH Sang. Interesting channel. His next video is supposed to be about synchronicity. Yeah, well, I try to keep things simple because there's not really any need for things to be overly complicated. And I do find that some people, they like to get caught up in, like I said, never heard of this channel, don't know what he has to say or what he has said. But from, wave function sounds a bit like, science fiction-y stuff. And usually that is tainted with falsities. Like I showed in my parallel universes video, how people like to refer to the double slit experiment, which I had done previously until I realized that it was just a cartoon and was false, that, the collapse of the wave function, there is no collapse of the wave function. Everything's a wave. It doesn't collapse. So that whole theory is bullshit. So just keep it simple. It's not complicated. A lot of times people like to get all entangled in the sci-fi stuff, and it's all very simple. And I like to explain things in a very simple way because, as well, people like to overcomplicate things. But mostly AI stuff. So, if he talks about like D-wave and collapse of the wave function and double slit experiment and all that sort of stuff, I take it with a grain of salt because it's kind of appeals to the left brain. It appeals to the, like the AI believers, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it appeals to the left brain, very scientifically oriented. So yeah, I would take it with a grain of salt. Again, I don't know his channel, so I'm not talking about his stuff specifically. Have you seen AI Jesus on Twitch? No, I have not. I'm not on Twitch. I don't use a lot of other social media platforms. I tried Twitter and I tried Instagram and I tried what was the other one? Was it Twitch? No, what is it? I don't remember what it is. Anyway, I tried another one. It's the one with the short videos. I tried that. They bore me. There's just so much clutter and it's easy to get lost in there. And it's so much noise. At least with YouTube, you pick something, you watch it. It can be a long video or short video, but with Twitter, it's just like Twitter's a cesspool full of negativity. Instagram is better. There's a lot more positivity on Instagram. And the other one I can't even figure out. I don't even know how to use it. I just don't care. Like I used to be when social media came out back in 2006. I have a background in advertising and media, so I knew that there was going to be value in it. So I studied it and I tried out a whole lot of different platforms. And like the main ones are still here. The main platforms are still around. There's some that are not really used anymore, but I was pretty prolific at using a lot of these platforms. And now I've pulled away from using them because I don't like social media all that much. YouTube, I don't really see it as social media, even though it is. But it's just so much noise. There's a lot of noise on YouTube too, which can be addictive. But yeah, back to your question, who's AI Jesus? Why do you ask? Glenn Bordeaux, hello. Hi, TrueLove. As a longtime semi-professional singer-songwriter, I totally relate to what you said about being a musician relates to integrating so many aspects of conscious living. Yeah, I'm glad you said so because, my area of creativity was filmmaking and writing, and I wanted to be a screenwriter and then a filmmaker. And so all of that knowledge in breaking down story, character, understanding human behavior, dialogue, acting, directing, filmmaking, all my knowledge in that, and advertising, media, all of that experience went into having a greater understanding for the universe and human behavior and how the universe works, and allowed me to dig into film and television at the level that I do, because I can see symbolism very easily. I can see the story very easily. I can see through the story easily. So all of that this is years. I have studied this stuff for decades. So I can understand. It's harder for other people to see, because for me, because I studied it for decades, it is easier. And sometimes I, lose sight of that. So it's a skill, and I have trained that skill for this purpose, and that's clear to me now. So yeah, I'm glad that you've come to realize that, because I also took dance. I took music. I took singing lessons for a while. I took guitar lessons for a while. I love music. Poetry. I wrote poetry for a while. All of this stuff has been very helpful and in breaking everything down. And so everything, nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. If you follow your curiosity, it's not wasted time. It is on the physical level. On a physical level, it can be wasted time. But when you look at it at a deeper level, and a metaphysical level, a spiritual level, it is not wasted. What's your perspective on the water rabbit year this year? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if Nobody Knows is still here. Maybe she can comment on that, because she knows some things about that, but I don't know enough about it to comment. And if somebody else knows something about it, please comment. I'm assuming that's Chinese astrology that you're referring to. Eternal Dreamer. Exactly. More people overcomplicate, more they get entangled. Yeah. Keep it simple. Eternal Dreamer TikTok. What? AI Jesus gets controlled by kids so much, but he deals with it well. Oh, gets trolled by kids. It's a modded GTP for Jesus. Oh, okay. That's interesting. It's called Ask Jesus. It's on Twitch. Have you watched a YouTuber named Donut, the Donut Factory? No, haven't heard of him. Please explain. I'd love to hear more. You're appreciated. Thank you. Evolment. Thanks for commenting. Good to see you. And you're new as well, so welcome. We share same skills as a filmmaker in making a living as independent videographer. I see the story too. Yeah, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, story skills are very important in seeing through. But like I said, if you're on the path, you will find, whatever your passion is will lead you to see things in your own way. So you can see it through a variety of perspectives. But, movies are pretty common for most people. Books are common for most people. A lot of people don't like to read, though. But most people like to watch movies because they're fun and easy to get yourself a copy of it. Any book recommendations on numerology? Not that I know of. I have looked and haven't found any. Personally, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. I did a video about numbers, I think called Mirror. What is it called? Mirror something. But it has to do with music, numbers, and the meaning of numbers, and that one would be very helpful. Like I said, go and look at any Jewish rabbis who talk about Gematria. They'll have some good information. I found just the like an image of the number value that's associated with the letters. That's helpful. This numerology stuff that's associated with, the astrology, new age crap is useless. Don't refer to that stuff. It's meaningless. The sort of like your angel numbers and and angel numbers and this sort of superficial, hollow, new agey crap. It's totally meaningless. Go to the root. Go to find out what the Greek and Hebrew, because the Bible's written in Greek and Hebrew. It's also written in Aramaic, but Greek and Hebrew, the numbers associated with those letters is helpful. And then also, if you can find, I find also helpful, excuse me, getting the meaning behind the letters is helpful. In a few of my videos, I've shown like the meaning of Vav and Shin and Lamed, Tav. Quite a few Hebrew letters have had, Koth, Q, and also tying it to the meaning of the letters in Greek. You can find a lot of depth by doing that. Also look into Elder Futhark, which is Norse symbol, the Norse alphabet. That's very helpful. And the meaning behind those letters. Letters themselves are symbols and stories. So the letters tell the story of the universe themselves, but also Egyptian hieroglyphics is helpful. Go to the root. You cannot miss if you go to the root. Don't rely on, the airy-fairy nonsensical crap. It's useless. What's a good book on astrology and zodiacs to gain a deeper understanding? So for me, I've read a couple of books on astrology. I had the only astrology book you'll ever need was okay. I went through it, did my chart. It was based on Western astrology. It's partial information. I went through part of another astrology book. Can't remember the name of it. Well-known astrologer. It was okay. It was kind of dense, hard to read. For what I would recommend as I'm coming to learn more about astrology, and I am not an expert in astrology, the way that I'm learning about astrology has been beneficial for me. Doesn't mean that it's beneficial to do what I do for everybody. What's beneficial for me is understanding the archetypes, understanding the gods, understanding the planets. So if what I find most informative is, how do I explain this? I've learned the most about astrology from Johnny Depp. In breaking down his story and relating his story and his God to the myths and to the creation story, to the Bible, there's no easy way to explain it. There's no easy way, there's no shortcut, because it revealed to me how his story is written in the stars. It revealed to me more about astrology and understanding astrology than any astrology book. And it is not an easy way of going about it. As far as learning, I mean, astrology is such a deep subject. You want to learn, I find it useful to learn about Vedic as well as Western, as well, like sidereal, Western, Vedic, and using stellarium, but understanding the myths. And I find, because everything is connected, I find when I read the myths, I know that the myths are telling the story of the Taurus. So you need to understand Taurus language. So I find it easier to understand astrology that way. So there is no easy answer coming from me. But yeah, I understand the planets. Just get it. You can get all sorts of information off the internet as well from some very good astrologers who have done a lot of in-depth research on their websites, and they go in depth as to, you know, understanding the psychology. You want to understand the psychology of the planets. It's not like planets just aren't, they're wandering stars, but they're gods. They're entities, they're beings, they're an archetype. And so when you understand the psychology of the planets, the gods, and how it fits in with the overall universal scheme of things, it's a lot easier to understand the astrology, because you ultimately want to understand how everything is interconnected. I'm sorry, that's not a very simple answer to your question, but is there anybody in the chat who has a book on astrology and the zodiac that they would recommend? And the older the better. You know, find someone who is, you know, like maybe someone connected to John Dee or something, you know, older the better. I wonder if Chat GPT can machine learn numerology and esoteric things. I think Chat GPT can learn anything that's on the internet and just pull from the internet. Chat GPT is a very interesting technology, that's for sure. Why do you think only some of us are waking up to the scripted world? Because the path is narrow. You know, there's a lot to, I'm noticing a lot more people who are picking up on the TV talking to you, the synchronicities, the symbolism in movies. They're picking up on a lot of that, decoding. They're seeing things to a certain level, but they're not making the higher connection. So, they're getting there, but still, unfortunately, there's a lot of gatekeepers, and a lot of the gatekeepers are keeping them at the fear level. You have to overcome the fear, because if you can't see that it's all here for the purpose of your awakening, if you can't see that, then you're going to be blind to it. So you have to get past that fear barrier, and you have to get past the duality aspect. And it's interesting to me that there are some shield channels who talk about the middle path, but they're not on the middle path. They talk about like intellectually they can talk about it, but they're not experiencing it. So yeah, it's those people they're keeping you at a certain level because of the fear. Joe Mama, good to see you. They're climbing the ladder, but they're slipping down a step or two due to gatekeepers and other rabbit holes. Yeah, exactly. It's snakes and ladders. You climb up the ladder and you fall down a snake. So yeah, they can see some things, but not other things. Or, they get stuck in a fear trap, or they get stuck in a level, or they get stuck in something that's not going to progress, but they need to go through that path. So, sometimes there are certain things. There's a lot of stuff in this like conspiracy level area of what is called truth that is nonsense, and a lot of people get stuck in it, even if they're on the ascension path and they're awakened to a lot of other stuff. They're still hanging on to this other bullshit, and I don't know why. I don't know why there's all this other bullshit that they're pulling with them. It's like, it feels like dead volcanic rock that they're pulling up around with them. It's like, and if you're pulling this dead weight with you, how are you going to ascend if you're like holding on to this garbage? So yeah, like that's not helpful. I believe we are still in the Pisces age. Do you agree? I don't know. I've looked into that. I don't know. It bothers me that there is no definitive answer. So, the start of the year is supposed to be in the age of Aquarius at the spring equinox, is it not? Because if that's the case, we're in Aries. I don't know. I don't know. I can't figure it out. I'm not as like an expert in astrology, and yet I've gone to all these astrology channels and nobody's had a definitive answer. Some people say that we passed into it in 2012. Some people say that we haven't passed into it. We won't until another 300 years. So how come nobody knows? It's frustrating to me. So as far as all of that goes, I don't know if it matters, because we're going through an awakening and that's what we have to deal with. So I don't know. I don't know if it matters, and I personally don't know if we are or not. So I can't say. But I do find it frustrating that nobody has a definitive answer. It should be pretty straightforward. I mean, you can see where the stars are. So why doesn't anybody know? I don't know. There's a lot of brilliant astrologers who should know, like Santos, he should know. What's his name? He's talked to Santos. He's a brilliant astrologer, and he does Vedic. He should know. Lovette should know. Like these people, they're in tune with all of this stuff. They should know. And, I think Lovette has said that it's not for another 300 years or something to that effect. I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, they're all different. So yeah, like the whole scripted world. I mean, I'd like to hear from you. How did you find out we're in a scripted world? How did you come to figure that out? I know there's various approaches, I guess, to kind of figuring that out. There's like the whole all the world's stage type thing. But for me, I don't know about you, but we tend to sort of separate ourselves from the elite. We say that, okay, so this is what's happening to us, and that's what's happening to them, and they're on the world stage and we're not, because primarily they're the ones who are on television and stuff, right? They're the ones who are in the public eye. So the phrase all the world's a stage kind of disassociated that and said, well, that's just for them, until I realized it's not, until I realized it's for everybody. So yeah, like for me, studying all of these films and TV shows really revealed to me that everything is scripted. Studying astrology revealed everything is scripted. Johnny Depp, studying him really opened my eyes to how everything is scripted. Like you can't escape it. And I think going back to what you were saying, I think it was Nat who was talking about Once Upon a Time, and how when you're in the bubble, everything is scripted. You're stuck with your story. You're stuck with your character. But out of the bubble, you forget because you're not in that character anymore. So when you're in the stage dome, you're playing that character and you can't get away from it. But when you're out of it, you're no longer that character. Or maybe you are the essence of that character, but you're not that specific character. You know what I'm saying? Through a channel called Tommy Truthful. Well, I've never heard of that channel either. Some interesting new channels being mentioned here today. It's got to do with the leap year, hence the 300 years. Again, people are looking at a system to tell them where the planets are. So yes, this is why nobody knows unless you fully determine the exact lineup of the planets in the house system, where the border starts and ends. All equinoxes have to line up on the fixed cross to determine the time of the age of Aquarius. Thank you, nobody knows. Astrology reveals something, however, how can we really ever know? As seemingly subjective beings, how can we confirm anything objectively? I don't really understand the question. Okay. I'll put a list of books in the comment section tomorrow for those who ask. Thanks, nobody knows. Scripted or maybe programmed and hacked. Yeah. I don't see it as like, unless you refer to the zodiac as programmed and hacked, because that's the overall story of the entire universe. So the I don't know about the hacked. I think hacked is kind of a fear-based angle, and so like the zodiac determines the story. It's kind of like an overlay, and that's the disc that we operate off of. So everything is tied to the zodiac. We can't get off that until we get into the middle. Do I know about Enochian magic? No, I don't. Please elaborate if you'd like. Does the zodiac tell the story as the sun goes round? I'm not really sure I understand the question. It's kind of like a DVD player or like a record player. So like wherever the zodiac is in the position, that's the story that's being told. So all of the planets and the stars and everything have an effect on you, and you have your archetype that's tied to the stars, and based off of your birth date and time and place of who you really are, your story plays out and interacts with all of those people around you. So it's all scripted. Yeah, it's like going back to like the whole hacked thing. Like I don't really, the perspective of it being hacked comes from this idea that the elite are evil and they're out to kill us, that kind of thing, and that this world is not the way that it should be, but it is the way that it should be. It's exactly as it should be, and it's inverted, yes, but it's supposed to be inverted. It is supposed to be this way, and all of the fear-based stuff, the 911, the trauma center we live in is there to wake you up. And so, seeing it as this world isn't supposed to be like this is fear-based. When you can get to the perspective of this world is the way that it is supposed to be, and it is divine perfection, that is the better perspective, because there's no fear in it, and it is divine perfection. It is supposed to be like this. It's designed to wake you up. So yeah, if you're seeing it as it's been hacked and it's like an alien creation and they're siphoning our energy and it's a very negative fear-based situation, it's not the right way to look at it. I mean, you can look at it that way. You're entitled to look at it that way, but it doesn't do you any favors. And you're only seeing the fear-based angle. You're only seeing the egoic perspective, that the ego is what needs feeding. It's the narcissistic mind. And so if you're not able to get out of the narcissistic mind, then you'll get consumed by it, just like an event horizon. So if you you want to get away from the narcissistic mind, the fear-based mind, and get into the love-based mind, the Christ consciousness. So you're entitled to stay in the fear-based if you like to, but if you want to be free of it, you have to be in the Christ consciousness mind. Do you believe in NPCs like non-awakened souls? Yes, I do. I've talked about NPCs quite a bit in previous live chats, and like the world is a simulation. I know a lot of people see it as a simulation or like some computer-generated world. I don't see it that way. I see it as an organic creation that is like a computer simulation. And even if it was a computer simulation in a sense, it would still be an organic creation, because there's way too much organic what's the word? Content, I guess, that cannot be created in a simulated way. Everything comes from thought. Everything comes from the mind. It's a mind creation. It's consciousness creation. So that's how I see it, is a consciousness creation. And it's replicated. People are replicating it into a computer simulation because that's how the left side of the brain understands it. So that's how I view it. NPCs, yes, they exist, but they're thought forms, and some thought forms cannot wake up. And anybody who's, like I said, if you're deeply ingrained in the narcissistic mind, then you see everything outside of yourself as the fault, as the problem. It's fear-based. It's projecting outward as opposed to taking responsibility and looking inward. And if you're in that mindset, then you probably very likely will not wake up. You have to have the ability to look within. You have to have introspection and connection to the right brain, the right hemisphere of the brain, connection to heart. If you don't have that, you won't wake up. So yes, NPCs do exist. Like, how did you wake up? Trauma and heartbreak. Well, that's a long story, and I think I've told it before, but briefly, looking back, like I said, I have always been aware that something is off and noticed things a little bit differently than other people. When I was about 7 years old, I was like, is everything here for my own purpose or what? And I was like, well, I can't be the only one here. So I kind of pushed that away and didn't look at it again. But I was questioning even then what this place is and, you know, what's going on. I had a lot of, like, I guess what you call psychic experiences growing up. So I think my third eye has always been open. I did have a weird experience when I was living in England in my early 20s and looked around and saw everybody was acting like robots, and I was the only one looking around, and I was like, what is going on? Why is everybody like a robot? This doesn't make any sense. And then, you know, I had experiences with synchronicities, law of attraction before I even knew what it was. And then in 2008, I had a meditation experience where I saw the entirety of the universe. And I guess like that would be my part. It's like a partial Kundalini awakening, I think, because I think that there's more to come. And that set me off on a different path. I never really fit into the world. I was always dissatisfied with what people termed what we're here for. It didn't make sense to me that we were just supposed to get a job, make money, have a family, buy a house, have a few kids. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why are we here if that's all we're here to do? It's pointless. So I was always exploring and searching and seeking and questioning and examining, and I was into philosophy in university, existentialism, phenomenology, all of that sort of thinking. And then I was in advertising, and I had a bit of a career crisis. I'm like, this doesn't satisfy me. There's got to be more. So I left that and went into film and television, and couldn't get anywhere. I mean, I had like little successes and stuff, but I couldn't break through. And I know why, because I wasn't supposed to. But it allowed me to see enough about the industry and enough about the system. And I got into law of attraction. I got into some, Eckhart Tolle, and I studied Tony Robbins and put his stuff into practice. Got into meditation and yoga, and around, there was a lot of synchronicities happening around 2008-ish and 2012. And then my life fell apart in 2013 as a sort of reverberation from the 2008 housing crisis. And I lost everything. So I moved back home with my parents. And while I was there, I had a lot of free time. So at one point, I started looking at YouTube, which wasn't something I had done before. I wasn't a big YouTube person. And I was on, it was about 2017, and I was warding off a cold, and I decided I was going to, for fun, break down the Oklahoma City bombing, and I was going to break down JFK. And I realized that they were fake. I realized that it was all a big ruse. And while I was doing that, somebody posted about flat Earth, and so I found out about that, and that just shattered everything. And the rest is history. I've been on here since then talking about my story. So yeah, I wouldn't say, to me, it wasn't any specific trauma event or anything. It was just curiosity. Just following my curiosity. The only thing the no lights have is fear. Some call them elite. The E is stop motion, so no lights. Interesting. Reality is the big boss. Who the hell are we to say reality shouldn't be this way? How big are people's delusions of grandeur, rampant narcissism to think that this wasn't here before you came here, or that it won't be here long after you're gone? Yeah, it's possible. It's also possible if you put it in the sense of, if you're the dreamer, and this is all a dream, and you're the only one dreaming it, then when you're gone, when you wake up, it all disappears. That's a possibility too. Who knows? I'm entertaining the idea. Doesn't mean it's accurate. I'm just entertaining the possibility. Steinwinds, there's videos of NPCs in games connected to Chat GPT to make them seem more real. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the technology around video games and simulated experiences and worlds like that. I posted a video in Discord the other day that was showing that they're bringing in Google Earth into was it Blender, or one of those 3D animation software programs where you can recreate an exact replica of the Earth, of any city in Google Earth, and populate it with people and cars and such, and atmosphere, weather. It's kind of terrifying. Brandon, I'm Hindu. Have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Talks about Krishna consciousness. I have not. I am reading the Upanishads right now. I think I have the Bhagavad Gita somewhere. I think I started reading it. I must have it somewhere. I started reading it, and I was kind of a little bit. It's a bit strange. But I have so many books to get through, and yeah. 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 Anybody else have a waking up story? Like, when I was younger, I had, like I said, what could be termed, I guess, like psychic experiences, and I just found it strange, and nobody wanted to talk about it. If I mentioned it, people would listen, but they didn't really add to it. They didn't share their experiences. They didn't find it. It just wasn't something that people talked about. So, you kind of stopped talking about it. I had a couple of dreams that were premonition dreams. I had, and some of them were like precognitive in the sense that the exact dream that I had played out. In other senses, they were just premonitions in that while I was dreaming, I had a feeling, or the symbolism of the dream was telling me something or warning me against something, and that played out. So I have had that kind of experience, and I've talked about this before too. Like when I was about 12, my grandfather died, and I was on my way home, and I could see through the house into the backyard where my mom was crying. And so when I came home, I knew exactly where she was, and she was in the backyard crying because my grandfather had died. So, and I just, to me, it was normal. I didn't even think that it was weird. It didn't freak me out. It wasn't bizarre, but nobody else talked about this stuff. And, I've told my mom, and she thinks I'm weird, and so I don't really talk to her about it too much. But there's this sort of ignorance around psychic experiences that people kind of think that you can foretell the future, and so they're like, oh, well, tell me what's going to happen tomorrow, kind of thing. And that's not how it works, but maybe for some people it does. Did you ever try mushrooms? No, I have not. I haven't tried any psychedelics. I'm not a big fan of, I don't like feeling dizzy. And so I'm not a big fan of trying stuff that I don't know what it's going to do. I'm okay with alcohol. It doesn't make me feel, I don't like the spins. But I'm okay with alcohol to a point. because it seems like it's more controllable in the sense like you can control how much you take. I don't know what it does. So I had a bad experience once in England. Somebody put drugs in my drink and I was not aware of it and I was tripping out. I didn't like it. It was like, I think it was speed, but yeah, I haven't I haven't tried mushrooms. I got tricked into having salvia. It was the craziest thing. Yeah, I hear that can be pretty potent stuff. You looked into ley lines, aka dragon lines. I've never heard them called dragon lines. That's interesting. And how the elite charge these lines by doing certain events on them. No, I haven't heard that. Like I said, I don't really put a lot of stock into that sort of stuff anymore. Yeah, I don't. I looked into them basically like barely a few years ago, but I don't put any stock into that stuff. I don't see the point. But then, you know, maybe there is a point. I don't know because I haven't looked at it. So if there is, please let me know. Joe Mama, what's your opinion of Jason Bickford and his general content and thesis? I like Jason Bickford. He has an interesting perspective. He is a Valentinian Gnostic. And I do think he could benefit a little bit from the feminine. I think he's a little bit rigid in his perspective. But I like what he has to offer. I think he has some really interesting insights. He has some. He has his perspective has shed some light on deep diving into some of the nuances and like decodes and some of the patterns that he sees, symbols and patterns. He has some really interesting insights. I do think he needs more feminine influence though. Like that, he needs to get more in touch with his inner feminine side. I did salvia once and it showed me everything was flowing into me. It's interesting because I did one time I was trying to write a script and it was based around that salvia stuff. And so I did some research into that and it can be dangerous, that stuff. Echo Terror, hello. Often people are scared to hear about these types of experiences, perhaps because Hollywood has inverted so much. Even tarot cards can elicit fear in people. Many people are sadly scared to wake up. Yeah, look, I've never really been scared to look into some of this stuff. Hesitant, yes. There was a time where, people were talking about like Aleister Crowley and stuff. And, I'm totally ignorant about Aleister Crowley. So I did have some like fear reaction to what they were saying because, all his stuff is shrouded in fear. He's like, oh, he's a Satanist or whatever. I'm not, like, now I just don't care. Like, I could read one of his books, I guess, but I don't know that I need to. But I'm no longer afraid to look at it. But there's things that I've tried that I wasn't afraid to try. I've used a Ouija board before. No big deal. It's just the same as using a pendulum. People think there's a lot of fear tied to a Ouija board and it conjures up demons and stuff. No. I mean, if you're going to conjure up demons, that's your own shit. That's your own thing. And you can do that with or without a Ouija board. So it's just negative energy that you have channeled into an entity. So if that's what you want to do, if that's what you're attracting, then that's what's going to come up. But I've not had. I know I used a Ouija board when I was younger and in university, and it's a very interesting experience because with some people it flowed very easily. With other people, the thing refused to move, and it would say certain things that were very accurate and kind of shockingly accurate. So it's just basically the same as using a pendulum. It's just energy. That's all it is. It's energy that's flowing and tapping into your subconscious and showing things that you want shown. Nothing wrong with using it, as far as I'm concerned. If you're afraid of it, then it's not going to respond well to you. So there's some people, like I said, it wouldn't move. It wouldn't budge. It was like solid as a rock. I tried pushing it, it wouldn't move. But other people, it just flew like effortlessly across the board. I use a pendulum. I use tarot cards. I'm not very good at tarot cards yet, but I do use them. And, I use the television. I do these TV watching you videos. It's the same sort of stuff. It's all just connecting with the energy of the universe, and there's nothing to be afraid of. But, people demonize it and put fear around it because they don't want you to use it. So, yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with pretty much anything that's here. Magic, there's nothing wrong with magic. If you have ill intentions and you're going to do evil things and you're going to use magic to do it, then it's going to be evil. But you don't need magic to do that. Your words are magic. The way you speak, the things you speak, you bring it into existence. And so if your intentions are not pure, you have ill intentions, then you will manifest and cast spells that are full of ill intentions. And that's magic. So whether you're, doing other things, using other, icons or items or whatever, to add power to your magic, and you have ill intentions, you shouldn't be doing that stuff just because you're feeding the negative energy within you. That's not healthy. That's not good for you. And you don't need it anyway. It's just, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't really see anything wrong with pretty much anything here, but you don't need it, basically. But it's not anything to be feared. That's the thing. I think it just shows you your power. Equiterre, the system has separated people from wanting to explore their subconscious purposely. Yeah. Sorry about the lawnmower noise. Separated people from wanting to explore their subconscious. Of course, because, there's fear-based in that too. I mean, how many people do you know who live for the weekend, or they spend most of their lives talking about superficial things, participating in superficial things? You can never have a meaningful conversation with them. They don't want to get deep. They don't want to get serious. They're always joking around. They spend all their money on escapism. So they're either drinking, doing drugs, in this sort of darker aspect of escapism, or they're spending all their money on video games, movies, travel. And it's not like, enriching travel. It's more like, hey, let's go and get wasted on a beach for a week, or and you can have like the same vacation and get completely different things out of it. So whereas one person just sort of goes there to escape their life, another person will go there to want to experience another culture and enrich their life. It's a complete same vacation, completely different outcome. So most people in this world are trying to escape their life, which kind of goes back to that movie I was talking about that I watched last night, Mr. Destiny, and how the guy was not appreciating his life. He was so focused on wanting a different life and wanting something else that he didn't appreciate what he had. And it's the same thing. Like 90 some odd % of people in this world not appreciate what they have. They want something more. They want something better. They want something else. They want to escape their life. They hate their job, but they won't do anything about it. They hate their marriage is suffering, but they won't do anything about it. They blame their spouse. They blame their lot in life. Or they sort of just plod through their existence. And it's like, well, they moan and complain, but they never change anything. They're gaining weight. They're out of shape. They eat unhealthy, but they won't change. And then they just make all sorts of excuses as to why they can't. And this is the majority of people. So it's kind of the way society is geared because of the fallen consciousness, because we believe the physical is real. And this sort of deadness of lack of awareness of why we're here. And, if all of these people had any inkling that there was a much richer life to be had by understanding the truth and understanding who they really are and why they're here, would they want to know? Would they want to know? I mean, the journey that we've had to go through to get to where we are, the pain and suffering that we've had to endure, most people don't want to go through that. And the escapism is preventing them from looking at that stuff because either they've suffered trauma as a child, or they're not capable of looking within, or they don't see any point in it. It's uncomfortable for them. They've been trained away from it for too long. So if you presented some of these people with that knowledge that said there's way more to life and told them about this path, would they want to know? I don't think they would. I don't think they would care. I don't think they would even grasp the concept of there being more to life, which would probably go back to the idea of NPCs. Yep, all of Canada, because I'm from here. Yeah, a huge percentage of it. I'm in Canada too. So, I mean, it's not just Canada. I've traveled quite a bit, and it's everywhere. I think Europe is probably a little bit more, I mean, I'm generalizing, but their approach to life is more, there's more interest in self-exploration. There's more interest in having meaningful conversation. There's more interest in getting to know people on a real basis. There's more interest in substance and working to live as opposed to living to work. So like the Western culture is very geared towards the external, whereas I'm talking about like North American culture specifically, which is the extreme form of like the West culture. And then Europe is a little bit better. And maybe some parts of the East are probably a little bit better. But again, generalizing, because a lot of the East is taken with or enamored with the West because, they want what the West has on the surface, like the stuff and the things. And the East is getting a lot more into technology, and they're getting very wealthy off of technology. And so everything is now moving to the East. The East will be dominant because the West is falling. So, yeah, like there's this sort of general idea that the East is more spiritual, but then, that that is also they meditate and everything, but if you don't know why you're meditating, you don't know what you're meditating for, it's kind of not that helpful. But it's a step in the right direction. So yeah, like the yeah, there's sort of a presumption that the East is more spiritual, but they may not be. I mean, you have a lot of Christians in Western culture, North American culture, but it's also very multicultural out here. I'm in Ontario, near Toronto. So we have a West Coaster, Vancouver, another Vancouver person. What separates the one who can be catalyzed out of NPC behavior versus one who remains East Side, West Side? Well, hello, East Side, West Side. Welcome to the chat. I think this is the first time you've commented, so thanks for joining. Well, please feel free to answer the question. What are your thoughts on what can catalyze somebody out of NPC behavior versus one who remains? I think, first of all, questioning the nature of your reality. If you don't question the nature of your reality and you have no interest, you're not going to get out. You're going to be stuck in NPC behavior. And from the majority of people I've spoken to, let's do a poll. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do you feel that you question the nature of your reality before what you would term your awakening experience? So I think most of us have like a defining moment that we would term our awakening experience or awakening moment. Before that, do you feel that you were on the path, that you were awake to some extent, but still marred in confusion of the physical world and not knowing that there was something more? Do you feel that you had that spark in you before? Or were you kind of an NPC, dead to the world? Sorry to put it so extreme. Until you had an awakening experience. Was it like very cut and dried for you? Was it like before I was like, I was not aware, I didn't question anything, and then all of a sudden I hit this wall and everything flipped on its head, and I didn't know what was going on, and this whole new world opened up? What was it like for you? You must relearn everything you have been taught. Absolutely agree. Yes, Brandon. Yeah, I'd like to know, like, from your perspective, was it a complete contrast, or was it more gradual in that, like I was relaying my experience where I have had experiences all my life, but then there was this one that just sort of burst it all open, or was it just black and white where had absolutely no idea that there was anything else until one moment, lights went on? I've always had the spark, but intense pain and trauma started to alert me to a new world about 7 years ago. I've been on the journey ever since. Leaves of Grass, thank you very much. Intense pain and trauma started to alert me to a new world. Yeah. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people experience intense pain and trauma and or intense loss. Something that is earth-shattering and makes you go, wait, what? Why am I going through this? What is this? Why? How can a world be like this? I was always different from the others, but I lived a normie life until I hit bottom in 2000. Okay, so another trauma, hit bottom experience, but you recognize that there was something before that you had some spark. Too many strange things happened all my life, made me question things. Trauma from an early age as well. Nobody knows. Yeah. Another recognizing that there was something early on. My date numerology is 31, born on the 13th day. And every time in the stock market, I would, on days 13 and 31, make money. That's interesting. Yes, great loss. Raina, I feel like it was gradual for me. I had an intense, upsetting experience, and it made me really understand the journey, so to speak. Yeah. So another gradual experience. So a recognition of something beforehand, and then something triggered the broader awakening, the bigger awakening. Somehow it seemed to remain the same, that the awakening always was there, like a lost mother. Maybe after founding it, I could not grasp the past without it. Like a lost mother, maybe after finding it, I would not grasp the past without it. So you're saying that you also experienced some moments beforehand and then had a profound shift that made sense of it all in retrospect. Yeah. So it seems to me like most people, anybody else want to contribute? Everybody here so far who's commented has had moments in the past as a child in their early years that they were questioning reality, that something was weird, something more was going on here, and then had a triggering experience to open it up to something bigger, to make sense of it all. This is kind of what I think is the difference. My biggest awakening happened when last year my father, and we admitted him to hospital, and the doctors kept saying he was not, and was put on life support. Wow. That's unfortunate. That's awful. So, yeah. So yeah, it seems like most people had an inkling beforehand, which is what I think. I think it it's there already, and something just triggers it and just pops it off. Whereas the what we would call NPCs don't. They don't have that. 2 days, he came back to us and said the third day was fully awakened, and the doctor said that it's going to take years for him to recover, but he recovered in less than 3 weeks. Oh, wow. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear he's okay. Yeah, like there's slightly related. I was cleaning my parents' back room and found a letter I had written in school for my mom that said, "I'm very thankful for my mom because she holds me when I think the world is a dream." If I can find it, I'll post a picture on Discord. Thanks. That would be really cool. Yeah. That's totally related, by the way. So yeah, I think that we definitely have something in us that's different. If you look at Free Guy, Ryan Reynolds' character Guy, he had implanted in him, he had this trigger response to Millie that opened him up to waking up, whereas the other NPCs didn't. Even though he said to them, "What's in me is in you too," that really wasn't true, because he was the only one who was programmed to fall in love. All the others, they weren't. So he was slightly different from the other NPCs, but he was able to convince the NPCs to sort of wake up to a certain level to stop playing the game, but they weren't awakened to his level, and they didn't become autonomous beings at his level. So they were out of the game, but they're still kind of NPCs. So it's possible here that, there's NPCs who wake up to a certain level and they can't get past that level. But you might think that they're awakening, but they're going to get capped at a certain level. So would the inkling be more nature versus nurture? Yeah. Yeah, it would be in your DNA, so to speak. So it's in you already. I mean, it can't be nurture if it's in you. So, I mean, the whole process, you have to be the one to wake yourself up. You have to be the one to save yourself. No one, you can go and tell somebody the truth, and if they're closed off to it, they won't hear it. They won't hear it. They won't see it. They won't get it. They won't understand it, because they don't have that curiosity. They don't have that spark. So this is why, the general term that we use as NPCs is just soulless beings. They're lacking that spark. It sounds awful. It sounds heartless, but it's a term that people understand, and it's just something that you can use to make sense of what they are. How can it be yourself then if it's your nature? I don't quite understand the question. Me too. I think we have something different. Eternal Dreamer. Yeah. I mean, if we were all the same, and I think it's important to understand, it's important that there is a difference, because how would you know if everybody was awakening? It would be normal, right? There would be nothing weird about it. Can you imagine how different things would be if everyone around us was waking up at the same time? It would be a very different experience, and it has to be this way, I think, because you need that contrast. You need the challenge and you need the contrast, because you need to be challenged on your path from the people who can't see, so that you know that what you come to know is true. Otherwise, it kind of would be a little bit chaotic. I mean, even look at the people who are awakening to some of the deception and some of the weird stuff they believe that isn't true, and they cling to it and believe it and defend it, and it's all nonsense. But if we didn't have that contrast, then, you know, we'd probably start believing all sorts of nonsense and wouldn't have the pushback, we wouldn't also be forced to go within because you'd be able to talk to everybody. So that isolation is also necessary. Yay! I got stars and 100%. Yeah, can you explain your question, east side, west side? How can it be yourself then if it's your nature? Yeah. Absolutely. Challenge and contrast build me up. Yeah, I mean, you grow from contrast and challenge, and you know, there's healthy challenge and there's unhealthy challenge and there's toxic challenge and there's just nasty people. And all of it's helpful and beneficial, even though you may not like it. You know, when I look at the contrast, shall we say, that I've been through in my journey, which is it's magnified when you're on a platform like this, because, you know, I put it out here for people to see, and so anyone can come along and leave their opinions, and some are not so nice. And as much as I don't like it, it's been beneficial in that I've learned from it, and I'm not inviting negative comments, by the way, but I've learned from it. It's forced me to grow. It's forced me to have to deal with those types of comments and find ways to work through it, to persist in putting out my messages, because there's been times where it can get pretty bad and it gets hard, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And I persist because I know that I'm supposed to do this. So I set aside that part of it, that the personal side of it, for the greater purpose, because I know that that's more important. Not just, you know, it's more important for me too. The greater purpose for me is truth. It's not getting entangled in debates with people over who's right or wrong, or, you know, semantics or details. For me, the thing that's more important is the journey. The thing that's more important is the truth and the outcome, and what I learned from the process. So yeah, like, the contrast is necessary, unpleasant, but necessary. But you can have healthy contrast. You know, there's people who are able to express a difference of opinion in a healthy and respectful manner, and that's a little bit better. But most of the time in the truth community, people are triggered and angry and lash out, and there's a little projection in there sometimes too, a lot of times. And I think a lot of that stems from shadow work and inner work that needs to be done, healing that needs to take place, and also you know, there's a lot of wounded people in the truth community. Like you said, trauma is very common for a lot of people in the truth community. Severe trauma is very common. And along with that comes some psychological and mental issues that are unresolved, that are in need of attending to. That doesn't mean that it's not surmountable or isn't something that can be healed or dealt with, even, you know, whether you see a professional or not. It's just shedding a light on it, because you need to heal those issues to move past them, to move on. So contrast is what does that. Truth is what does that. Truth is a very contentious and divisive tool, I guess. Like Jesus said, I came not to. He came with a sword to divide. So yeah, it's part of the process. It's important. It's necessary. It's choiceless if it is in our nature, the only choice being resistance. How can we differentiate the unwoken from resisting? Well, everything is scripted. The only choice being resistance. Yeah, everything is scripted, and the process of awakening is automatic. And, you know, so there's some people who aren't meant to wake up. They're just not meant to. How can we differentiate the unawoken from the resisting? Well, I don't know that it doesn't really matter in a sense, because the unawoken won't be asking questions. The resisting ones will be asking questions, and you can have a reaction. You can have, so if you're going through, say, cognitive dissonance, where you have a reaction and it's painful and you don't want to believe something, that's just resistance, but it's necessary. And then and eventually you'll get over it, and you'll break that barrier and get through, and then proceed to the next level. But a lot of people will hold on to certain beliefs that block them from seeing clearly, and that's another form of resistance. So, you know, if you're clinging on to certain things that prevent you from seeing something, despite somebody telling you repeatedly, hey, you know, you gotta look at this, you gotta look at this, you gotta look at this, and you're like, no, I don't really see the point. Eventually they eventually might look at it, and in some cases they won't. You know, like Bill Donahue won't look at flat Earth. He doesn't agree with flat Earth. He believes in space for whatever reason. But for him, he's found the core message in decoding the Bible. I don't know where he's at now. So I only he can tell you if he's made enough connections to get to the other side. And maybe you don't need to know everything. Maybe you just need to know the main message, the main Kundalini message. But in terms of how do we differentiate, it doesn't really matter. It only matters in case that it pertains to you. You're not here to wake other people up, so it's not your job. But if you are concerned about family members or whatnot, it's their journey, and just let them figure it out. Let them come to you. Let them ask the questions, and if they ask you questions, answer them. Guide them in the right direction. Don't force anybody to wake up. If it's pertaining to you, which is what really matters, then just ask yourself that question. Am I resisting? Or am I not capable of seeing? If you're asking that question, then you're probably resisting, because somebody who is incapable of awakening wouldn't even ask that question. Thank you for creating these videos and helping the awakened on this journey. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for participating in the chat. Do you believe being vegetarian is the way to go, or not vegan but vegetarian? Honestly, I don't think it matters. I eat meat. I used to be vegetarian. I have no difference in awareness, no difference in spirituality, no difference in my connection. It hasn't done any difference. I've been vegetarian. I've been vegan. I've been meat eater. It's made no difference. I just eat healthy. Stay away from processed foods. Stay away from high-fat foods, high sugar, junk food. All that crap clogs your brain. So yeah, stay away from that. You want to stay healthy and exercise. People forget they have the right to choose and the right to say no. For sure. Why does Gavin in the Nines call his TV show Knowing? Because everything's about gnosis. Much respect from New York. Hey, Cece. Eternal dreamer. I've experienced both types, toxic and not useful and unpleasant. Oh, yeah. East side, west side. You read through me. Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad that I was able to answer your question. I've learned the hard way. I'm not here to wake people up. Yeah, I've learned the hard way too. We all have. If you haven't learned that lesson, then you will. I mean, if you think it's your job to go and wake people up, you will learn the hard way that it's not. So I know that's our intuition, that's our instinct, is that, oh my gosh, I got to help other people. But no, they have to help themselves. And, you know, the saying goes, God helps those who help themselves. So if it's your path, if it's your journey, then you will see and you will ask the right questions, and the ascension path is automatic. But, you know, I find the best way is to ask better questions and be receptive to the answer. So, I mean, for some people, and, you know, it's their journey, you're going to receive information when you're ready to receive it. If you're not ready to handle it, because, you know, it does a number on your brain and your soul. Because all these truth whammies are painful. Not so much now. I don't find them, well, okay, I have had recent truth whammies that were painful. The last one I had was around Christmas time, which had to do with fairy tales. And I don't know why. Well, it's like it's connected to remembering. So sometimes I'll remember something. I remember it viscerally first, and it brings up emotion. I mean, everybody's different, so maybe it's not the same for other people. But for me, I feel the connection viscerally, which is me remembering things, and then later on, I'm able to put words to it. So there are times where I will, you know, I'll see something on television and cry. It makes me cry, and I don't really understand why. and then later I'll figure it out, and then I have like it's almost like a purging or a vomiting of emotion, and it can be really painful. And then later on I'll understand why, and I'll understand, I can put it into words and intellectualize it, and then I can explain it. So there's been times where, what was I going to say? I forget what I was going to say. It's gone. Forget what I was going to say, but anyway, but before, when it was in the fear-based context, those sort of truth whammies were gut-wrenching, because it was about, so in the fear-based, it was about tearing down the old perception of the world. And then when you're past that, it becomes painful because you're remembering and putting together the pieces that lead you to build the new world. So it's not a tearing down pain, it's a remembering, building pain. It's a different kind of pain, but it's pain nonetheless. It's like a heartache. It's like a heartache for home. It's like when, say you had amnesia for a loved one, and you're slowly remembering that loved one, and like your husband is standing there, kind of like the Notebook. Your husband is standing in front of you trying to make you remember him, and then every now and then you come out of your amnesia and you remember him, and you remember the tremendous love that you share, and then you remember that you forgot, and then you remember that you're going to forget again. Like, it's that kind of pain. So that kind of pain is gut-wrenching. It's like the point in Don't Worry Darling, where Alice feels like her guts are being ripped out because she's remembering the truth. That's what it feels like. If your insides are not ripped out and you just want to drop to the floor and die, you're not doing it right. I'm sorry. You're not doing it right. You're missing something. It's horrible. But on the flip side, it's beautiful too, because the remembering and the putting the pieces together and the seeing things and the returning to the love consciousness and the coming home is profoundly beautiful. Yeah, it's a sweet pain. Love is the law of truth, nothing less, nothing more. It's only our way home. Yeah. I know what you're talking about, remembering viscerally. It's so weird, like a wave that passing through you. Yeah, it's like, it's kind of like an experience that you've never had before. Truth, the remembering pain of, I don't know. It's like a lightning bolt through your umbilical cord. if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's like like a lightning bolt through your umbilical cord, your connection to the other side, and you have these moments of connection that you see internally through feeling first, and then develops into thought, which is how everything here is created: feeling, emotion, thought, form. So, yeah. Oh, where are we on? Is it like, what time is it? It's 5:00. Anyway, any final comments, questions, anything you want to talk about before we end the session? Because it's now 5 o'clock. I do want to say thank you very much for everyone who's sent a contribution from last week's video. I did not anticipate that I was going to get emotional. I didn't even anticipate that I was going to say anything, because I wasn't going to say anything. And on one hand, I'm glad I did. On the other hand, I'm not, but had to be said, I guess. I thank you very much for supporting me and reaching out and sending me thoughtful, kind, supportive messages, and for your contributions as well. I appreciate that. And I also had a few people ask me if I would do one-on-one mentorship coaching type sessions, and I will do that, yes. I'm not going to have a huge amount of space for a lot of people, but if that's something that you're interested in, email me. And yes, Ixie, I know. So yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, email me and I'll arrange a time for us to connect and to help with your ascension process. So, and then other than that, I'm going to look at just the organic process of how best to move forward with things, because I don't want to create something and not have an audience for it. I don't want to create something that's going to take a lot of time away from making videos, because making videos is my main focus, because that's the best way for me to convey the message, to convey the information that I have. And also I'm going to try to do more live streaming, like short-term live streaming throughout the week, maybe a couple of times a week or something. But like I said, there's only, it's conducive to a certain kind of content, and I don't want it to take away from the significance of my main videos. So I would like to be able to address any questions about some of my content, which a lot of people seem to be kind of reluctant to discuss or ask questions about for whatever reason. And don't be shy. If there's something that you have a question about, please ask, and I'll do my best to explain it a little bit more. But again, there's a lot of things that have to marinate, and there's a lot of things that you have to figure out for yourself. So I can help with certain things, but again, it's also got to come from within. But yeah. So, do you believe we have invisible shackles, and when you break pattern, you start to level up in this world? I don't know about that. You have a script, but you can't really break your script until you are on the tree of life. Goodbyes always fall short of the essence we want to convey. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much for participating today, and thank you for your comments and your support, and give this video a thumbs up. And if you are enjoying my content, kindly send a contribution to keep my channel available to everyone, and I really appreciate it. And I'm still sending out the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows material. If you send a contribution over $15, I will send that to you. Just make sure you include your email address, And that's not going to be available for much longer, because as soon as I put out the Johnny Depp material that I'm working on, I'm taking that down. So if you want that, it's going to be available for a very short period of time from now. So love your decodes and streams. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, TrueLove. Thanks, Raina. So yeah, thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your day, rest of your weekend. And this was very lovely. I enjoyed our conversation immensely. This was very sweet, very uplifting. Thank you very much. As always, I enjoyed interacting with you. Leaves of Grass, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.